when you sneak into an area and say you've got two options. One you've kind of pre-called, and we'll talk about locating them and why you'd set up in a place and why you might pass on it. But when you're in there and you say, this is the spot I'm going to call, right here at the edge of this little pond, and I'm under this canopy of this big, fir tree, whatever, then if you can just slip in there, because say I'm hearing them howling out there, say I'm hearing them 300-400 yards away howling, and I want to try and sneak in as close as I can, but trust me, you're better off hanging up a little distance, because if they see you, and you'll be shocked at what they can see, you'll never know they were there, and they'll just be gone. So slip in as best you can, take your spot. If you're hand calling, you have the opportunity to literally just sit down, kind of let things quiet for a minute, and start working your call. And whether that's a prey, a rabbit distress, whether that's an elk call, whether it's a, something as simple as a hoochie mom, just any sort of thing, whatever that sound is, once again, you're controlling the volume, the intensity, the cadence of it. If you're using an electronic call, you got two issues. One, if this is my spot, this is where I'm going to sit, this is my great hiding place, and I got a great view. I can see down that trail there, I can see up this trail here, and I can see this hillside. So if I'm going to run that call out, I'm running it out 30, 40, 50 yards, whatever your distance is. I'm moving out there, I'm making sound out there, and I'm spending time out there. So laying my scent down. The other issue is, once I get back to my spot, there are very few people that can do this intuitively. It's not like a 14-year-old trying to text, on their cell phone. We're old, we have to look down, we have to scroll through these menus, and screwing around, looking at this silly thing here, maybe having to tip your readers up so you can actually see what's on there, is time that you are not doing something productive. In fact, you're doing something counterproductive, because what you're not doing is you're not watching the area in front of you, and you're spending time. These all they got pre-programmed, that's really cool. And if you're completely, really don't want to do anything with hand calls, I get it. But I think your percentages are going to be lower in most situations using the electronics. Because what sound am I going to use? Can I change that pitch? And then all of a sudden, boom, here they are. Well, it's still screaming like a wild rabbit, and that was great at volume 30 when they were way out there. It's maybe not so cool when they're standing 15 yards away and going, what the hell is that? Because I've never seen anything screech like that loud, or the sounds are unnatural, and there's nothing calling them on in. With the hand call, you just sit there and go, here they come. So you can either give a little squeak, or you can just sit there quietly. Most of the time, I prefer to sit there quietly, because they already know. The second these wolves hear a sound, a prey sound, a distress sound, I'm telling you, it's got to be radar like a fighter pilot. They just know it's right there, and it's 210 yards, because they will come right in on you. So you don't want to do anything that's going to give away your position there. So once again, trying to fool with the volume, trying to change the sounds up, I think those are all negatives. Plus, when they do come into that 30, 40 yard range, now they're in the zone of where I was standing out there 10 minutes ago laying my trail when I went and set my electronic call. So not trying to downplay them, but there's a lot of downsides to consider that you really need to think about. But the most important is, when the wolves are actively coming in, what do I do now? Well, which button is volume, which one turns it down, which one turns it off, and that whole time I'm using my hands to do that instead of flicking the safety and lining up the dot, right? So that's a real serious consideration. With the hand call, like I said, I can sit there. I like to be sitting. I don't like to be standing. I like to be down low, kind of on their level. Obviously, it depends on vegetation. What are we shooting through? If we got this tall grass like this, obviously a giant Rottweiler can run through that grass, and other than kind of something out of Jurassic Park where you see the grass is moving, you're not going to be able to see them. So it behooves us to be sitting up a little bit higher. But generally in the forest, ground level is good. Especially if you're in stuff where there's actually, the branches maybe starting this high, you can see clearly underneath. You're also a lot more stable. Sitting on your butt just gives you a lot less movement and wobble to fool with. So those are all serious considerations. But once again, this is practice at home. Practice holding your rifle, practice blowing, on your call. So I can set my stock right here on the top of and this is the last minute. This isn't 5 minutes in, we're starting. This is when I think, okay, I think they're close. I heard something. maybe heard a yip, maybe heard a crack, whatever. Have that rifle there, hand on the forend. I flip my safety off. I hunt alone, there ain't nobody else around. I'm a big boy. It's one less thing that I can worry about having a noise of the snick of the safety going off, and one less thing to remember, because like I said, it gets very intense very quickly when they come in and you're trying to figure out which one's closest, which one's the best shot. Oh, do I need to swing over here? Because they're not going to come in on a rope and a line. You can have a couple from here, a couple from here, one or two that are further back in there. So once there's a lot to think about, so you're trying to minimize all the stuff you have to do, all the things you have to think about, so that there's just one thing. Get on that trigger, line up the scope, deep breath, and press, okay? Because like I said, it's a lot of movement. Obviously, the other advantages are, these are well, if you get really cool ones, because you like really neat woods, you can spend 50, 60 bucks on these. But your electronic calls are gonna start at 200, go to 500 real quick and easy. Another real important consideration is, if you become reliant on electronic calls, is how do you carry it? Because like I said, this is a tiny little model. I'm not even sure if Fox Pro makes this Scorpion model. Most of them look like a lunchbox. You've seen them. And Fox Pro's great stuff. I mean, I love these things. But how are you going to haul this thing? Is it going to ride in your backpack? You're not going to walk through the woods with it, setting it down every 400 yards like your little lunchbox. So, do you put it in your backpack? Do you have to take off your pack? Do you have to set it down, unzip, run it out there 40 yards, set it up, come back, fool around with your controller? Or you just go, this is a really cool spot. There's some fresh wolf poop right there. I'm going to sit down here because it's early morning. There's a good chance they're lurking around this lake right here. Pull this out of your pocket and start cranking. Okay? Real serious consideration. The other thing is, they are not, if it's close, it'll work. All right? Just like elk bugles. Everybody wants to make this beautiful, scale trumpeting sound of an elk bugle. You hear wild elk, they're all over the place. There's teenagers that are out there, and they get crackling voices, and they don't have that cool, sound. Wolves are the same way. So the howling, the different sounds, as long as it sounds like prey, it sounds like a wolf, then you're going to be in the game. So once again, I just highly recommend that, just from the practical aspects of deploying it every time, and obviously the cost. When you go to shop for these things, you can find like flex tones. These are nice because one of the considerations you have is, if your rifle's right here and you drop this out of your mouth, what you don't want this is to clank against your rifle stock and go crack, make some noise. Some of these flex tones are kind of cool because these are all rubber, they don't do anything. They're 10 bucks. They all work just fine. So your technique is going to be way more important than the tone that you're getting out of this. Two kinds of calls. Obviously, there's what's called a closed reed. That means when you blow on this, it's going to make the same sound. If you blow lightly, it'll be a soft sound. If you blow moderately hard, it'll be louder. And if you blow super hard, it'll be real loud. But it's going to be the same basic tones. They have also what's called an open reed call. You guys, if you can see this, it's just a tone board and the little reed here, and that reed just flaps, okay? So it's kind of the difference between playing a trumpet and a trombone. If you got a trumpet, or actually we should say a bugle, because a bugle you just blow into and it just plays one sound there and you do the rest. Trombone, you got to slide that thing back and forth. Well, that's exactly what an open reed call does, is depending on where you put your lips on this thing, it'll change the tone. And if you're a hardcore hunter and you really enjoy these things, that's great. I'm afraid I'm going to mess up and go high when I want to go low, or make some squealy sound that I didn't have any intention of making, because I wanted to sound like a fawn, or I wanted to sound like a rabbit screaming because I'm getting shredded, by a coyote or something. So I don't personally care for these. The other issue is, if you're carrying them on a lanyard, you can trip this up, get this in the brush, you can snag it on something, you can goof up that reed pretty easily. Amazing calls, you can get a wide range of sounds out of them, but the consideration is that you better be really good, because just like a kid playing the trombone in the high school band, he's going to make some odd sounds, and it's okay in practice hall. It is not good when we're in the band and putting on the concert, right? So when we're on the spot, we want to make those tones just right. So blow into this one. Or screaming rabbit, you know. Or what I like to do a lot, I've had great success with, is just almost like a baby kind of a sound. Just something that is showing I had a response. Anyway, canines love this. But it gives you a whole bunch of options, and it is just, that's all done by how hard I'm blowing and what I'm coming up with in my chest. So am I just, you know, crazy? Which is a rabbit getting shredded by a bobcat or something, right? Or, you know, like a fawn. Just kind of a plaintive wailing, you know, Mom, where are you? I'm lost. And, you know, this is, you got to kind of figure out what you want to do, but you have a lot of options, but closed reeds are good. Downside to closed reeds like this, if it's cold, like real cold, you can freeze a reed. Now, the secret to not freezing a reed is when you're not blowing, you keep this sucker down inside your coat, inside your shirt. It's on a string, you can't miss it, you can just hook it right here and pull it out. But just the warmth of your body or staying underneath your coat will be enough to keep it from freezing up. Obviously, you know, 2 is good, you know, 1 is probably not enough, so have one in your pack, have one in your pocket, have one around your neck, so that you've got options there. And having other sounds is not a bad thing, but most importantly, you're not gonna freeze those up. So that's the only concern people ever voice about it is, well, I can't get enough sounds. We know that's nonsense. I just showed you 3 great ones right there, all out of the same. You don't have to have this open reed to do that, but do keep it warm if it's really cold out. That's your concern. Obviously, you can use hoochie mamas, you know, little cow elk chirps, you know, because all we're doing is we're trying to figure out what the local prey is. If the local prey is, you know, bunny rabbits and ground squirrels, we'll make those kinds of noises. If the local prey is elk, you know, we'll do that. If it's white-tailed deer, we can do that. But you can do most of that with a call like I just showed you there. And that's going to get you in the game. And truthfully, if you are in wolfy area, it will do everything you need it to do. Obviously, the time to learn is to practice at home. Practice screwing with the neighbor's dogs. Go out and try and get some coyotes in the off season. That's great fun. And you'll know right straight away. If you can pull in coyotes, you'll be halfway there to getting wolves. Coyotes are pretty easy. They come running in pretty quick. But the wolves, I think, are definitely learier. They're also generally in their packs. So if you're, instead of dealing with a lone coyote or a pair of coyotes come roaring in, you're looking at 4, 5, 6 animals that come in. A lot more senses that you have to be concerned about defeating. So the other thing you can do when you get them in real close, we were talking about the volume, is that if I've got them coming and I want to say where those people are out on that hiking trail out over there, 100 yards out, if I pick them up or I think they're there, I'll give a couple more pretty intense calls, just to say, all right, hell, it is up here, let's keep going. And then I'll shut up, because I know that they know I'm right here, but they don't know maybe exactly which tree I'm sitting under in this little area. So if I'm sitting quietly when they make their entrance and they come in and they're looking, and that's how I've got some photos up here, you guys will look at stuff. Shot a real nice black wolf a year ago, and it was straight across a beaver pond from me, and there were a number of them, but that one came in and it just stopped. It's just looking. And I was like, okay, here we go. I've always wanted a black one. Haven't seen several, but never got a black one. But it was facing me dead on. It was a little ways out there, about 90 yards. And I thought, well, I'm going to give it just a tiny little squeak. And that's all I did, just a little. And it stepped forward, kind of turned a little bit, looked, boom, that was the shot. So you have that control. Now, had I been using my electronic collar, I'd either been blaring, and it would have either run in and tried to attack the machine, or more likely get spooked because something isn't right. And they are big on bailing out if something is not right. So that's a real serious concern about using the electronics. Plus, if I'm trying to screw with my volume knob, I'm not looking at that wolf, and I'm not trying to figure out if there's 3 more coming through the cattails right with it. So being able to control the environment is huge in those times. Let's see, we're talking about distress sounds, you know, pick what works for you, pick what you can make the good sound. Tons of YouTube on there, you can go and figure out what these things are supposed to sound like, but the 3 sounds I just gave you, especially ones that I think kind of imitate like a fawn, are more effective. I mean, they'll come roaring into the rabbit calls too, but I like that fawn sound, just kind of wah, wah, you know, and that's all done just through your diaphragm and how hard you're blowing. So that's easy to do.